Good evening and welcome to the Australian Stock Market Show. The All Ordinaries Index turned to rise last week, so can we expect the Australian stock market to return to being bullish? Stay tuned as we'll talk about that shortly. For our main topic in tonight's show, we give you our views on the best Bitcoin trading rules and cryptocurrency strategies. First up, we'll share our hot stock tip for the week, so sit back and relax. Tonight is jam-packed as we have lots of emails to answer. We'll also take your phone calls and give you the answers to some of the important questions around the market. Tonight we have plenty of great stocks to look at, including Xero, Worley, CGF, ARB and more. So sit tight as we'll get into those quite soon. I'm Dale Gillham and I'm your host for tonight, and joining me is our fantastic team of highly experienced analysts and professional traders, Janine Cox and Philip Tortevsky. And together we're Australia's most trusted stock market educators. Hey Janine, Phil, how you doing?
Hello.
Good, thanks. Yeah, great. After a nice long weekend, which you didn't get.
Yeah, I had to work. Look after things while you had holiday.
Yep, thank you for that.
Yeah, and Phil's got a suntan.
Yeah, I didn't go to the beach, but it's holding up well.
Well, we got a fantastic show tonight. I'm excited about it. All about Bitcoin and everything else.
The hot topic of the world over the last couple of years.
It is. Well, anyway, tonight, as I mentioned, we are going to tackle Bitcoin and trading rules and cryptocurrency strategies, so stay tuned as we'll get into that and more very soon. But first, we need to get into this week's hot stock tip. So Phil, what have you got for us tonight?
Sure. The hot stock tip for tonight is Woodside Energy. Now, if we go to the market index, Woodside Energy Group, which is formerly known as Woodside Petroleum, this is one of the top stocks on our on the ASX. It's an oil and gas company involved in hydrocarbon exploration, evaluation, development, production and marketing. Now, some key metrics on this one in particular, we've got the 2024 year-to-date return 2.61, one-year return minus 12.2, which is about in line with the ASX 200, which is a negative 13% one-year return. It's got a market cap of 60 billion and it is ranked in the top 10. So this is very different to what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. It is one of the bigger players on our market, if not one of the biggest. So if we bring it to the chart, we can have a much closer look and see what we've got going on here. Now, instantly I've got a few markings, and I've said that right this week, on the chart. What you'll see, I've got in green a horizontal line at $30. Now, I've marked this level because if you note that since 2005, $30 has been such an important level for this stock. Every time it's decided to go and have a run, it started its run from around $30. So it's been a very good base for this stock. You know, it's been around 7 or 8 occasions in the past as I move my mouse cursor over. Each time it's hit that level, it's had a nice move up. And what do you know? We've touched that level again in the last month. We've had December, which if we zoom in a little closer, has come in and touched that $30 quite nicely, and you know, technically it's created a bit of a bar which you know, can be deemed a reversal bar. For those out there that know what I'm talking about, you're probably smiling. But and look, following that, we've had the month of January, which has closed above December's high, and look, that snapped a 4-month streak where price had been, you know, falling pretty sharp. So on top of that, what it's also done is it's come back and tested this trend line. So it's come back to a level where we would expect price to come back to from a technical point of view. And I've also marked a 21.76% you'll see there as a price projection. And you know, the reason I really like this stock is because it's got opportunity not only for the long-term trader, but also for the short-term trader. So I don't know, have you got any thoughts on this?
I'm loving what you said. Your stock choice is great, fantastic. I totally agree with you. Look, just looking at the chart, the thing that I like about Woodside is just this repetition of these ranges that we saw. So out of the GFC low, a nice one there, and we saw one into this rise in 2014, a third one into the high here, and then of course the COVID low, but again, a nice long run. So, you know, I guess you're expecting, like me, to see another nice run, a similar sort of range. If we look at the rises in terms of that range, The one out of the COVID low was up around 165%, so maybe more than 100% increase on that level. You currently have got 21. Do you think you're being a little bit conservative there in your target?
Now I'm thinking short term a little bit, you know.
Yeah,
so
okay.
just getting to the first port of call, which would be that $40 mark. But
Yep. Great.
look, it's interesting because normally we do stocks that start to curl up and give us a bit more momentum. But this one's really interesting of where it stopped falling.
Is that because this is one of the biggest stocks? Is that where you're comparing it? Normally we come up with some of the smaller stocks on the market, whereas this is a nice big one.
It is, and it's different for me.
And it's got the volatility of a smaller stock, doesn't it? Which makes it really good for any trader.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Alright.
Fantastic.
Well, thanks, Phil, for that. I think it's a great stock tip for this week. Actually, I'm looking forward to what you bring us up for next week. But that is it for our weekly hot stock tip. Now, shortly we'll get into our topic for the night. But before we do, right now is your opportunity to get involved in the show and have your questions answered. Remember, we do prioritise phone callers, so pick up your phone now and call 039290 9988. That's 03 for Melbourne 9290 9988. Or you can just text your question to the number on your screen. Now, the first caller into tonight's show now gets a free copy of my book, Accelerate Your Wealth. So pick up your phone and dial 039290 9988. Now, while you do that, well, tonight is we're going to take a look at world markets. So let's get into those.
All right, on your screen right now, we've got a list of world markets. Now, at the top there, you can see one of my favourite ones to look at the moment is the Nikkei stock average. It's actually up at 7.66%. But what do you make of this one, Argentina, at the top there, Dale? Have you seen that one? It's up from about 35% there.
Well, they get pretty passionate. They love to be kicking goals in soccer and all
Don't
those
they?
things. So why not let them up the top?
Okay. And then we've got obviously the US market up high as well. But still, when you look at the returns, we're talking pretty flat returns, aren't we? It's 3.3% for the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones is only up 1.7%. Our market, unfortunately, is down below the midpoint here. We're still in the red slightly, but I think that we'll break out of that this year. I'm expecting possibly double-digit returns in the next financial year on our market.
Get Phil on the show and he expands our watch list. Like
Okay.
there's a lot more
I know,
countries
look at
on there
that.
than Janine and I ever had.
He's got excited, hasn't he? Is there anything on there that you're interested
I
in?
had to delete a few, so there were more.
So we're going to look at any one of those?
Yeah, we are, and I know Janine's got one that she really likes. She mentioned the Japanese market, and
Okay.
I've got one coming. So
Excellent.
we'll start with
So
Japan.
let's have a look at the Japanese.
All right, Japanese market, it just looks so bullish. To have a look at that, you can see it's in this really long trend now, challenging that high. But if trading this at this point, you wouldn't be probably looking to do so now. I think you might have missed the boat on this one, but I think what it does is it gives you a really good example of how it can provide some really good returns. If people are trying to trade markets, then this might be a good one to keep on your list, because we're talking about returns in these runs over 50%, which is nice, because that with a little bit of room for your entry and your exit, that would give a nice return. 87% there, and the more recent one we've got off this low is about 50% as well so far, and not quite through that high yet. But I'd expect, given where it's come, it will eventually take out that high. So great, the Japanese Nikkei.
The Japanese.
Because I know part of the reason why we look at world markets, because it gives us an indication of what our market might do if the sentiment around the world is good.
Well, not every market, but you're right in saying, of course, I'm not going to question you. All the markets,
You can do that if you like.
All the markets, when they're moving together, they rise with the tide.
That's what I was meaning. Now you've got another one you want to look
I
at?
do. Now, given we're on the controversial topics tonight, I'm going to go ultra contrarian, and I'm going to pick the worst performer.
Okay.
And see what's happened. It's the Hang Seng Index.
Yes.
And if we
So
bring
out
up
of Hong Kong, yep.
Hong Kong, and we'll keep it to the monthly chart, because this looks like, I know your favourite saying, DOG. But look, this market's been falling, since January 2018, and it's been falling with what you would expect to see in a trend. So what I do find interesting, actually, with the Hang Seng Index is that it's come back to touch. I've got my mouse cursor over here. January 2024. This month, the low has come back to touch the October 2022 low, which was a significant low because we had a really strong push out there for 3 or 4 months. So now that we've come to this significant point in the market, I'm wondering whether we are perhaps going to see a move up with the Hang Seng, because this one is definitely lagging the whole world. And it's, it raises the question, why, for starters?
Well, you think this one is the biggest opportunity, is that what you're saying, given it's been
From a contrarian,
down?
look, generally from a contrarian point of view, that's the case. Anytime you see the worst performer, they can easily turn out to become the best performer. So,
True.
You know, a market going down or a stock going down 5 years is a definite signal to have a look at it, especially if it's a good market or good stock like the Hang Seng. So could be all upside for the Hang Seng anyway, but that is our thoughts on the major world stock markets. Now, before we get into the first email, remember to get your questions answered live on air. You will need to text or call into the show. You can also send your questions to info@wealthwithin.com.au and we'll answer them in next week's show. Now let's get into our first question. All right, our first email is from Gerard, who says, "Hi Janine, Philip and Dale. Thank you for your Tuesday night shows and your great analysis and advice. I'd like to have your thoughts and analysis on that stock, please. This is Electro-Optic Systems. Is it the right time to buy some units of that stock? Kind regards, Gerard." I see I've been relegated to third now. It used to be Dale and Janine, now it's Janine, Philip and Dale.
You can still have a say.
I know.
I'll share the mouse with you.
I'm just having a go. So what are we talking about? This stock. So have a look at it.
Well, look, I mean, it's a specky, if you ask me, because of the volatility and the liquidity of it. So I'm just going to grab the crosshair, bring it across there. You can see that there's about, about 1.5 million units traded, but we're talking about $1 stock. But in saying that, you may have actually paid attention to what we've said on previous shows, which once the stock gets above that dollar mark, which it clearly is now, then there is a significant probability that it will increase and go on from there, which it looks really strong to me in the short term, and it looks like it's got the potential to head towards $182. What do you think?
I totally agree. I really love it when these stocks, when they consolidate here and start congesting. And like you said, it's that stock that has been the theme of the last couple of weeks. Those penny stocks, multi-baggers for sure. And look, what you're going to get, particularly with the stock congesting here, it's either going to pop up or it's going to pop down. And given it is in that space that is a little bit more speculative, I love it. I love it for one. All I would say is if you're going to follow this one, perhaps what you normally would do in terms of risk and protection, maybe you could, as an idea, probably keep it a little tighter and follow that stock up as it moves on, because at this level they can go up really, really fast, but they can fall down really, really fast also.
Now, his question was, is it time to get into this stock now? Now, both of you are bullish on the stock,
well, that depends,
but neither of you said, is it time now?
Well, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes. Look, it's broken out of that sideways congestion, which we've got. I'm hovering my mouse over here. But if I was trading this stock, like I said, I would be much tighter with my stop.
Okay.
So I would want to get in, and I wouldn't want to give this stock too much room to move, because it is, quite a small player.
So you're thinking a short-term move, because he doesn't tell us whether it's short, medium or long-term, what his thinking is.
Yeah.
Just says, is it time to buy now? So you're thinking short-term?
I'm thinking trail this stock.
Trail a stop up underneath it?
Trail this stock, because it is $1 and it is at a level where it can be quite volatile. So, yeah.
Any arguments for you?
Yes.
I thought there would be.
Okay, I'm thinking, I like what you said.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that if this stock actually closes up strongly at the top of the bar by the end of the week,
Yep.
then I would agree with Phil. However, I'd really like to see it go through. Let's just have a bit of a look, and I'll expand that up so you don't have to get your magnifying glass out there. So if it goes through this high here and it actually closes above at the end of the week, then I would, and like Phil, I'd be really wanting to look carefully at, and we're going to talk about stop losses tonight, but really carefully at where to set that stop loss. And this is actually a really nice little point underneath that outside bar. But of course, when people are trading this, you've got to come up with your own rules. So, I'm hoping that you've got your own rules sorted.
Sage advice from the
Thank you very
conservative
much.
one there.
Very
and
conservative.
great advice
I'm back to
from the
Mr.
aggressive
Risky.
one.
Mr. Risky.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, now we have an email from Tom who says, "Hi all, hoping you can discuss Challenger and if interest rates are positively affecting this company. Would be great if you can also provide some feedback on technical analysis regarding chart and likely trend. Thinking of buying and holding for 5 or more years. I'm 46 and looking to build a portfolio with high dividend returns for future income in my 50s. Thanks, Tom.
Should we tell him the good news or the bad news?
Tell him the bad news first and then finish him off with a big bang.
Tom, the bad news is that the market might peak out in a few years, so be
will.
careful of that, and we'll be telling you all the way through. So in terms of long term, I'd say long term to us obviously is 18 months plus. So I'd say that, over that period there is a possibility that this could be a good one for that.
Well, he's talking
timeframe.
5 years.
5 years, I'd say no.
Okay. So what are you seeing on the chart?
For me, what I'm seeing on the chart, and look, this stock has been, since March 2021, this stock's been range bound between $7.50 and $5.30. So it's stuck in a sideways pattern and it hasn't shown me any signs yet that it wants to go up. So the risk for him here is that it just continues to go sideways and he's stuck in a trade doing nothing. So I would wait, definitely want to see a break above that 740, 750 mark before I got excited about buying this stock.
Yeah.
I want to get into a couple of things here with this, because obviously neither of you are excited about the stock right now, because that's what I'm getting from you. But he's saying he wants it to build his portfolio so he can get income on retirement. So he's trying to build an income portfolio now. One is, should he be doing that now, or worrying about income now, or worry about it when he retires, I'm assuming? And what kind of stock should he be looking at in his portfolio?
Top 20.
Top 20?
Easily top 20. And should he be worrying about income? I guess that's personal preference. But it depends on whether you're thinking about what the cycle's doing. So, you know, when you're talking about the market as coming to a peak,
yes,
you still want to try to eke out as much income as you can get from that and sit on big stocks. But you've also got to have some of those growth stocks in there as well, like this. But it's just that the timing for this one's not there yet.
Yeah, because and this is an important point, because he's talking about 5 years, because obviously that's when he wants to get income from, I'm assuming, from retirement. And we know with pretty high degree of certainty between maybe 2025 and 2030, our market will crash again. So if you're looking at retiring in this next 5 years, that has to be high on your radar to go, ooh, how hard do I push it now? And then when do I start pulling back? Because often we see people push hard towards the end, and then the ultimate dip over, and we saw that in the GFC, and we've seen that a few times with retirees.
Well, you said it perfect, and I remember in 2007 when that happened, you know, people that, it took 10 years for the market to get back to where it was, you know, near 2007. So, you know, that's a long time to wait, especially out of work.
So, just sit back a little bit. I think we can pick a better stock, or you can pick a better stock. I'm watching the show each and every week. You'll be able to have those, but sorry the guys didn't have any great news. Anyway, let's get on to our next question. This one is from Ben, who says, hey team, been loving the podcast recently, especially the ones that Janine has done on the grain and cattle commodities. As a farmer, it's exciting to see how much benefit I'm getting from doing the course and reading these commodities to make an educated decision when to sell our product. Thank you, Janine. My question tonight is on Worley. I brought back on the 24th of May 2022 for $14.91. I got a trailing stop loss on the stock, which triggered a sell last week, sold on Monday the following week, which protected my capital and made a small profit. Where do you think Worley is likely to head in the near future? I know when mining booms, Worley is likely to follow, which makes me bullish on Worley, but it's currently showing weakness. What's your thoughts? Thank you, Ben. So, what should Ben do, Janine?
Right.
Because he loves you, obviously.
It's a tough situation, isn't it? And thank you so much, Ben. I've got more on the commodity space coming up soon, so if you've got any requests, please send them through. Just looking at the chart, it is tough here when you've watched the stock rise so nicely, and it has. So I think I've been having a bit of fun with this arrow here, but if you see where the arrow's pointing, he's bought somewhere down here in 2022. And this is a volatile stock at times.
It is.
But it's deceiving. So first of all, Ben, if you just look at what it's done on the monthly chart, and this is one of the reasons why I absolutely, really like this stock. To us, from a long-term pattern point of view, this appears to be on a long-term movement, which has the potential to either get to $30 or way beyond that. So
long-term up.
Long-term, we're saying this is bullish and it's a good stock choice, but right now it's actually just had a reversal. So we're not we were looking at this one, but we're not in it at the moment, and we pick particular times to be in this type of share because of the volatility, and it's so cyclical, and we can see that.
You're saying he's made the right decision to take his small profit and get out?
I'd say absolutely, and I'd just say, look, don't walk away from the stock.
Yep.
Once you've traded it once, though, sometimes if people have made, they've walked away and they've made something on it, they, think that they're going to repeat it. They get attached to it, that emotional connection. So just make sure that you look at it and just think, right, this is actually, it's like your worker. The stock is working for you to make you some money. So where can I next get the best opportune entry to do that safely? So we're just waiting for that setup now. We're waiting as well, but it's not yet. It might find support somewhere between $14 and $15 and then wait.
Well, that was really good advice for Ben. So thanks, Ben, for sending it in, and good luck. But take Janine's advice and keep watching Wally. Now we've got to have a text, or we do have a text for tonight. And this one is from Kirsten, who's asking about, look at CHC. She's saying, is it a buy? Cleared 15H December high off. The 15th of December high. It's cleared. Asking us for our thoughts. So what do you think, Phil?
Look, if we go to the chart, it's... it looks interesting. It looks okay. It's come out of that low from October, 27th of October.
It looks interesting. It looks okay. Which one?
It looks okay.
It can be both, no? I'll give a bit more. I'll draw a horizontal line here because there's something I can see. And if I draw a horizontal line, what I find quite interesting here is that it's come to that $11.30, $11.40 level, which has been a previous period of where the stock, accumulated a little. It's popped its head over to the other side and found a bit of support, and now it's heading on up again, albeit we are on the weekly chart here. So I'm not too sure whether she's got a short-term or long-term mindset in this stock. It's been falling for quite a while, but that being said, it's making higher highs and higher lows. So for me, look, it's in a short-term uptrend, and look, it's got a bit of volume, coming with it. So yeah, I mean, depending on her outlook, it's definitely, I would anticipate further rises, especially in the short term.
Fantastic.
Look, I'm just looking at this here, and I'm seeing sort of a lot of boxes ticked because we're talking about the trend line's been broken, that level that you were talking about's been broken, it's found support. What's curious to me, though, is how it got sold down into this low and it closed low on the bar. Like, who's playing with this, So you've got to be mindful of the beast, don't you, that's there behind the scenes, always, just hang in there. But it's closed high so far. We want to see it close high for the end of the week.
Look, it could be that just Friday was the last day of selling. The last buyer finished, the last seller finished on Friday, and the price ended up looking that way. So
I love watching you two chat. I don't have to battle with her all the time, so I love it. So it's great. Well, that's all we have on CHC, but now for our topic tonight, which, as we've already mentioned, is on the best Bitcoin trading rules and cryptocurrency strategies. We'll also answer as to whether you should buy Bitcoin now. In the stock market, investments can change from cold to hot and back to cold very quickly, and so it is with Bitcoin. Now, I also want you to know that what we will reveal tonight applies to any stock, commodity or currency anywhere in the world. Now, what I mean is that if you know how to trade, you can trade any market on any time frame, including Bitcoin. If you want to know what to look for, then stay tuned, as we'll get into that shortly. Now, as a little history goes a long way, Bitcoin US dollar rose by more than 1,600%, but in just as dramatic fashion, it crashed by 77% from its high. Bitcoin changed from hot to cold, but recently rose by around 200%. Now, to help you profit, we're going to share whether Bitcoin could repeat what it's done in the past, and if now is the right time to buy it. We'll also discuss some trading strategies to help you profit this year. Now, there have been a few interesting developments you need to be aware of. Now, Janine, I'm sure you can shed some light on these.
Now, you know how I feel about when big fund managers make announcements and they're cheering and celebrating? What do you
I get out of your road.
Simply because if we're talking about Bitcoin, or cryptocurrencies and ETFs, I'm always suspicious. You and I have been thinking, well, what are the risks in the market going forward? But now that there's this huge push towards creating these funds for retail investors, and they're becoming more in the media, you know, what's going to cause the next big correction? Well, I'd be worried about ETFs, and I'd be worried about cryptocurrencies involved in that as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely they will. they'll cause the next big crash.
So look, Bitcoin BTC has suddenly rebounded from a crash under $40,000 per Bitcoin, climbing back from what some thought was a critical price level. The Bitcoin price has swung wildly following the debut of a fleet of spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds, or ETFs, this month, described as just the beginning by one legendary Wall Street chief executive. Now, analysts at Wall Street giant JP Morgan have predicted the outflows from Grayscale's converted spot Bitcoin ETF, GBTC, are largely behind us, signalling an end to the downward pressure on the Bitcoin price.
Now, I get excited when I see how changes impact price, but investors who bought Bitcoin near the peak will be feeling the opposite. Now, my question to you both, what do you think about the competition and the news that spot Bitcoin ETF will create, Janine?
Look, look, that was the whole point. They were talking about whether Bitcoin could fall away, and it was falling for a while there. They were suggesting it was going to fall below 40,000 US. I just looked at that and thought it's just coming back into a short-term correction before it then makes the next move up. But in terms of that competition, there's only so much money that can go into different areas of the market. So
there is. But to me, is an ETF, people buy index ETFs to get exposure to a whole index. But to buy one ETF, to buy a Bitcoin,
one instrument,
that just sounds stupid to me.
Yep.
Because you just buy Bitcoin yourself. So the only benefit of that is that you're using a stock exchange to buy the ETF rather than having a wallet and all that. But ETFs have to make money for the ETF provider.
So it's going to cost less. The fees are low, apparently, on these ETFs.
I can buy a Bitcoin and have probably low fees, just straight off a Bitcoin exchange, can't I?
Yeah, it was Larry Fink. He came out from BlackRock and said that the reason they're doing this, they think they can compete, particularly on the retail end, for people buying Bitcoin rather than going direct, buying it from BlackRock. It's going to be much cheaper. So
I just think they're giving it the perception it's much safer.
Well, for sure, because their name's attached to it. And look, we all know at the end of the day, an ETF is a derivative.
Correct.
So it's supposed to be tracking an underlying instrument, which is the real instrument, not the ETF. So,
and they're not actually buying the Bitcoins anyway. They'd be hedging using all sorts of complex strategies that they have.
Well, that was one of my concerns, because you and I saw before the GFC hit how people were going in droves to go into CFDs, thinking that was the thing that they had to trade. And I'm seeing this same sort of thing mounting, that this is where we're heading with these sort of products that could be part of that push up in the market. Well,
just because they can create a product doesn't mean you should have it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, to me,
That's a warning.
There's always why are they creating the ETF? For them to make money, not the investor to make money.
Yeah, well, institutions will be able to actually cash out of them. So that was an interesting development for people to look into.
Good discussion. I could be there for an hour. But anyway, do you know how much money, Janine, has gone into the new Bitcoin ETF? And what do you think the impact will be on a Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? So I'll ask you, Phil.
Yeah, look, US Bitcoin ETFs see 4.6 billion in volume in the first day of trading. Now, look, in comparison, the SQQQ, which is the most popular ETF, does about $120 odd million a day in trading. Now, I know it's
a million or billion?
Million.
Million.
So 4.6 billion is well over. That being said, it's the first day. Everybody's excited on day one. I'd like to see how that goes as the weeks go on. But look, they've overshot normal trading volumes by billions.
Yeah,
actually, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because we say that when something launches on the market and it's newly listed, give it 12 months and we'll see it trading below what it's listed at. It'll be falling. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Funny you bring that up, because I remember when Bitcoin as a trading instrument came on the retail end, particularly with my broker, it was at the time it was near its all-time high, and that's when it fell. So it was almost like when shorting was allowed, the coin fell out of bed.
Yeah.
So
I wonder
the penny dropped. That's a good one. The penny dropped. But I wonder whether now these big announcements now going to open that up for probably even on a higher scale, especially at the institutional end.
Yeah, I think because with Bitcoin, just to summarise what you're talking about, or what I'm hearing, is that they've created this ETF to suck in the people that normally wouldn't go into a Bitcoin.
I think
And that's really
what's
what it is,
happening.
because people that
I
want to do
agree
Bitcoin,
100%.
they'll be in the Bitcoin on their own.
Yeah, because what's happened is since the GFC, before the GFC, ETFs were not prominent in investors' list.
Yeah.
They were investing in stocks. So now they are used to ETFs.
Correct.
They're sort of like the frog in
shouldn't
the
be, but
pond,
they are.
adjusting to the temperature rising, and now they're going to be going into these Bitcoin ETFs. It's a bit of a concern.
Well, that is interesting. Now, as I always say, the best way to understand is to see it for yourself. So let's get to the charts and see if the recent fall, and we also answer that big question, will Bitcoin fall further? So let's bring up the charts, Janine.
All right, on the screen there, we've got Bitcoin US dollar. You can see what we were talking about before. Phil was talking about them having been shorted from that high. So there's the high back there. That was in November 2021, but there was this high as well where in April 2021 where there was that first significant fall. But it's off the back of a 1,663% rise out of this low for the ones who were the early movers getting into the race really early. But now, as Dale said before, we've seen a 200% rise in the Bitcoin price, and the whole, hoo-ha was about whether the Bitcoin was going to actually trade below 40,000, which it did dip below, but didn't stay there for very long, and has now come back up to a resistance level, which is somewhere around 44,500. So we could see it trade up a little bit more. I think the fanfare might sort of run out temporarily before we see a bit of a pullback. That's what you'd like to see, whether it's a stock or market, before we can determine whether it's going to continue the rise. But it looks bullish, but we've seen rises on this on the crypto previously, maybe 4 or 5 months up, and then it falls away.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I mean, look, it's had a good from December 2023. It's had a whole year to really push, and it hasn't been able to push through the all-time high. It's only really pushed up half of what it's fallen. It's taken almost from November 21. So it's taken almost a year from 21 to 22 to fall, and in that same time span, it's only gone up about half. So whilst it is running up, particularly in the last 4 or 5 months, for me, I mean, it's still got to do a lot more for me to go super bullish and go with these predictions that some people are making, like 100,000, 200,000. Yeah.
So look, I mean, I think it's got the potential to go through the all-time high in the big picture sense. However, in the short term, we just need to see whether it does have this correction back after the fanfare, like you were saying.
Yeah.
We just need to let it have a breather.
Can I give you my thoughts?
Go for it.
I think one or two things are going to happen in the next 3 months. One is that it's going to rise up, and if it does do that, by the end of April, it's going to tank. And we're talking about a 50% fall. That's what it'll do. If it's falling away and not going up, or generally going sideways and down into the next 3 months, then the opposite will happen. It'll just go off like a rocket.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So to me, that's my prediction. So look out for the end of April, I'm saying.
So which one were you picking?
Look, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, I know, you just
I was going to keep that all to myself and what I'm
just
thinking.
giving everybody options.
I'm giving everybody, well, it's up to people to make their own decisions.
True.
And looking at it, I'm just saying, if it's going to do this, if it rises up into the end of April, it's going to tank. I know that. But if it does the opposite, it'll flip and it'll have a very, very strong rise.
Okay.
So that's what's going to happen. So watch the charts.
You've heard it all.
Over the next 3 months. But it is interesting anyway about what we're doing. But what about some other cryptos, Janine? Is this a phenomenon we can expect across the board? Now, will they fall, or is there a buying opportunity? Now, I know when you're looking at Bitcoin, a lot of the other cryptos will follow Bitcoin. So what's happening, guys?
It's interesting that you asked those questions, because I've just got up on the screen here, it's Solana, which you can see there. We've had a similar sort of sideways consolidation. I'll just expand that chart again. I know that you don't have Bionic Sight there. And you can see this sideways move and a rise of 3 months and a bit of a consolidation still. So it's the same sort of pattern that we've seen across the board happening. But let's look short term to see whether the recent reaction had that effect. And you can see there was a bit of a sell-off there into the low. Even though we're talking about something completely different to Bitcoin, it's like that when one's rising, a lot of them are rising at the same time. Not all of them, depending on what they're in. But this one to me looks really nice.
Yeah, look, and like Dale, like you said, a lot of these cryptos, a lot of their charts mimic one another, and I would employ people to go out there and have a look and see the different cryptos out there and compare the charts, because you'll often find that a lot of them look pretty much the same. But this one in particular, if we go back to the chart, Solana, does look a little bit different, like you said, Janine. And look, I agree with you. I like on this particular run, it's expanding into the end of the run. You said the bars are getting larger than smaller, which tells me that, you know, there's more push to the upside. It's had a bit of a pullback and now it's popping back up. So from a purely technical point of view, this looks okay.
Could it double?
No, I'm not going to go that far and say that. But the only thing I will say is that, again, from the all-time high in November 2021, that whole year it took to fall, it's had a whole year to try and recover that, and it's only gone up half.
That's a good point.
So it's probably coming through, but I'm not crazy in this space, especially here. It's got a lot more to do.
So you're saying you don't like cryptos?
Look.
Well, can I add my 2 cents? There's going to be people watching this that are absolutely crypto
mad,
and they're going to go, "You guys don't know what you're talking about," blah blah blah. But the thing is, we've been watching crypto for a decade now, and I know we've made predictions. Like in 2017, I put out in the newspapers that crypto was going to crash. Nobody believed me, even though the gardener, the poor man, nobody ever said it was going to go through the roof. It crashed, and then we're seeing. I had, I think 12 months or 18 months ago, I did a recording on Bitcoin, and I said it's going to go under 20,000. And I had people saying to me, "No, it's going to 60,000 and blah, 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 but you're wrong and you're an idiot. It went to 20,000.
Yep.
So it's not that we don't know what it's doing, but I'm just saying as people get stuck in their head, they fall in love with crypto, Bitcoin or whatever it is, and they won't see the wood for the trees. So that's what we're trying to be real here with them, aren't we?
Exactly, just trying to prepare people.
Understand what you're doing. Not necessarily don't trade it, but understand what you're doing.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Well, we've got no problem with people trading it. It's just, are they aware of what they're actually stepping into?
Yeah, because you've seen the percentage rises. I mean, you can make a lot of money out of these if you know when to get into them, can't you?
The only issue there is you're trading a lot of the time in, unless you're trading now on regulated brokers, like now it's offered, but I know a lot of people are trading off these second-hand brokers that, you know,
just crypto brokers,
right? And we've seen 2 exchanges go broke, like FTX, and so I'm just thinking, imagine that happened on the ASX, because the exchange is supposed to be the referee, the one that accepts all the transactions, makes sure everything's transparent. Now, if you've got a dirty referee, all these things somehow get swept under the radar with crypto, and the crypto bulls are full steam ahead. I just think, have a look at the whole picture and see what you're doing. If you're happy trading in, you know, unregulated markets and taking that risk on, all power to you. But don't forget, there's over 2,000 stocks on the ASX, and a lot of stocks under $1.50, they are in a regulated market and they fly just as much as these cryptos.
So you can make
so what you're doing is you're warning people about trading in an unregulated market.
Just be aware. And look, I mean, I don't want to harp on this too much, but Jamie Dimon is a perfect example, the head of JP Morgan. He came out and said that crypto itself still to today is used for sex trafficking, drugs, and other sort money laundering.
Money laundering.
So
why support that? And I'm 100% behind that. Well, anyway, now I'm often asked, guys, whether the strategies that we teach to trade the stock market can be used to trade Bitcoin and other cryptos. Now, the answer is yes, and it always is yes. As I mentioned earlier, they work for stocks, they work for commodities, they work for currencies, they work for cryptos. Now, the next question I get is, how do you do it? Now, right now, Janine and Phil will share you a simple process that you can use to determine a strategy to trade Bitcoin. Now, what's the first step in that, Janine?
The first step is to take a bird's eye view of whatever it is you're trading. It doesn't matter whether it's a crypto, a stock, a commodity, it doesn't matter. You've got to see where is it in its overall pattern and understand it. And it's something that, you know, we've talked about for years when we were working on how do we actually teach people to see the big picture, you know, because I mean, I was a classic example of someone who would want to drill down to the details. So we've actually got to get people to step back and take a look. Traders who are trading short term, that's what they do, isn't it?
Well, a lot of these crypto platforms that I've visited, they're just showing you the movement all the time.
Yeah, it's such short term
It's like
data.
watching live data. You're watching the live data.
The tick data almost.
The tick data. And that can be really, really, can I say, enticing for people. They're seeing news up and they go, oh, jump in, you know, and then because they're looking at the market moving 24/7, basically.
Well, like we look at that and think that's just rubbish. You know, we don't think it's of any benefit to anybody. But if you're looking at what you're looking at on the chart here, and I'm just showing the history of Bitcoin before we go into the next point, you can see that there are trends on this. So there are trends, really nice little trends on Bitcoin that can be traded over the long term, short, medium and long term, but how long you stay in it depends on whether you can get out safely. And the first thing you want to look at is, how do I actually, you know, if I get into this, how am I going to get out? And you can see when it does pull back, it might be fine to be on those long runs, but you know, if you're staying in it, half of your profit or nearly all of it, it fell 75%, you're going to lose it if you take a buy and hold strategy. You definitely can't be doing
So
that.
first step is, if you want to say that again?
Look at the environment and make sure you understand how it actually trades and the volatility.
Okay, so what's the next one, Phil?
Yeah, look, to add on to that, I think backtesting would be next step, naturally. And backtesting, what you would want to do is to go back over the history of the stock. Now look, Bitcoin does have history from 2011, so to go back through the history of the stock and go on the chart and see how the stock likes to move, what are the repeatable patterns, and from that how you can gauge a trading strategy. Now, what's also important is to understand that you are, which part of the life cycle you are in the stock. So if we're in a bull market, you know, there's certain strategies that you can work with. If the stock is trending down, there's other strategies you can work with. If it's going sideways, there are other things. So, you know, Bitcoin's been on this massive bull run. So it's much easier to do strategies when a market's really, really running. But yeah, I would say get into your back testing. Now's the time you start digging in deep, going over the history, working out your win-loss, your profit loss, and going through the whole history. I mean, 2011 is not that much, and it's a good chunk. So
I guess the first thing that, you know, people get surprised when I ask them, you know, could you trade this on the monthly chart? And they say, what are you talking about, monthly chart?
Yeah, good.
But I wouldn't necessarily go for monthly chart with this, but a lot of traders trade it on the daily.
They do.
And looking at the weekly, it's just beautiful. You can see some of the fantastic entries, some of the stuff that we teach in our, even the Trading Mentor course. I can see it on there, would work on Bitcoin.
This is, and when I study Bitcoin, it has this beautiful rhythm in price and time. And I went, wow, easy to trade. But do I trade it? No, I don't.
That's right.
Because I'm choosing not to.
But
I don't want to trade.
But you look at other stocks.
I don't need to trade it.
You look at stocks and you think, well, why would I trade that when I can trade
Correct.
these others?
And that's what I say. I'm in a regulated market. I do that. I can get leverage if I want on CFDs, whatever else. I don't have to play in the Wild West. That's just my choice, but I don't mind people trading cryptos. But is it just Bitcoin, or should they trade multiple different cryptos? What are you thinking there?
Look, my thinking would be that if you're going to put some sort of crypto in your portfolio, it'd be just one. You know, you don't want to end up loading up the portfolio with a whole heap, because they are highly volatile. But if you're really experienced at trading, you know, it's not to say that you might not branch out from that a bit once you've actually got a lot of knowledge.
Oh, look, as I said, to me, when I look at the chart and study Bitcoin, I go, this would be like so easy to trade. But I don't want to go through all the hassle of wallets and all the other stuff to go with it, and then trust the exchanges that you were talking about. So I go, just remove that. I can make just as much money doing other stuff. And sometimes people with Bitcoin, because they're sold the dream, if that makes sense, you know, they're just so much devoted to Bitcoin and crypto, they can't see anything else. And to me, it's like, well, okay, pick the risk.
I just want to give a couple of examples here, just looking at the chart, if we can go and take a look at that. So, you know, even a simple trend line across the tops of some of these peaks here and underneath the rises can sort of help you stay in the trade.
Simple techniques. That's what I'm saying. It's simple to trade Bitcoin if you've got the right techniques.
Look, I mean, Phil, you were talking before about these little consolidations. If we can just have a look at some of them, just to give an example to people.
Even just breaking highs, you know, because this market is, you know, hit that really big bull market, and if we go with what theory tells us, it's going to go to 200,000. Just continuously buying when new highs are made.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a strategy there.
So what you're saying is just looking at this and taking the line across there and saying once it trades through that high, then you could take a short-term trade on it. Then it's about working out, well, do you stay in it for more medium term, which, you know, if really short-term traders trying to just get in and out in a couple of weeks may have missed that next rise, but, you know, more medium-term perspective allowed the whole trend to unfold, and look at the profit potentially that could have been generated from that one trade. And where would you have got out? Well, there's a really nice little exit just there. So, you know, there's 347%.
And even to add to what you've done, I mean, look, there's another entry there. So each time we're getting highs getting broken, there's another entry there.
Yep.
And you could continuously do this throughout the life of the stock and keep getting in as the highs go on, you know. At some point the trend will reverse, and like you said, so it's important to have your exit strategies in place. But
Yep. And strategies too, thinking about strategies, it's about being able to identify certain things on the chart. And I guess that's what, you know, people say when they're starting to learn how to do this. They're starting to see so much more on the chart, warning signs. So for example, once it went through that last entry we've got on the chart there, the rises were shorter and the pullbacks were getting longer. And then you know, we're seeing this rise just through that high there. So that high in February 2021, it hardly broke through before it pulled back again. All of these sort of things you'll learn to understand indicate that you've got to be wary, including, you know, following the trend.
One of the challenges that I find when people are trading Bitcoin is they don't like to sell it because they've made that 3, 4,
Well,
500%.
that's what happened to so many people. I mean, back then we were talking to people who were telling us they were putting their superannuation into it. We're saying,
Yep,
why in
I
the
think
world are
that's
you
crazy.
doing that?
You don't ever do that. Well, anyway, to sum up, should investors buy the dip now as they are being encouraged to, or should they be waiting right now? Because we always say buy the dip, buy the dip. Should they be doing that, or just wait?
Look, it's in terms of the weekly chart, there is a slight dip here, but if we bring it back to the monthly chart, you'll see that it's almost, you know, had a decent run out since, you know, the November, December 2022 lows. So for now, I don't really see any significant dip that I would be buying. In fact, you're buying into a market that's gone up for a good 4 or 5 months. Maybe short-term traders can find some dip in there that they can buy, but me personally, look, if you are looking for that continuation of the trend, any new breaks of highs perhaps will give signal to you that it could be a time to buy, or just wait for a new dip to happen and perhaps pick up some more around there.
Okay, so as I was saying a bit earlier, it's like if it's moving down now for the next 2, 3 months, then it'll shoot off like a rocket.
Then that would be
so
great
that could
to
be
see
the perfect
that.
time to buy it. But if it's rising through to the end of April, opposite's going to happen.
Yeah, then it's higher
So-
risk.
Yeah, so it is a bit higher risk. So there's lots of little strategies around it, but don't necessarily trade. I think what you're saying is don't trade short term, or necessarily think you have to trade daily charts or
That's
intraday
right.
chart for Bitcoin. You can use the weekly.
Yep.
You were going to say something?
I was just going to say, particularly on my platform, I don't even know how you can because the spread is so high.
Okay.
To be able to trade, get in and out, the spread won't really allow it.
Yeah.
You're probably going to have to take more of a longer term bias.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it for our topic for tonight. So stay with us as we still have plenty more emails and stocks to go through. But before we get into that, for those watching on YouTube, you can watch all of tonight's show plus the exclusive content on talkingwealth.com. So head over and grab your free 7-day trial. Now, the benefit of being a Talking Wealth member is that you get to get our in-depth approach to lots more stocks and answer to more questions. Also, every Monday, you also get to watch my weekly Australian stock market report here. I share my views on the market and some great opportunities. On top of that, you also get hundreds of amazing interviews with industry experts from around the globe. This is all on talkingwealth.com. Now, moving on, we'll get into some more questions. So now it's your time to pick up the phone and give us a call on 0392909988. That's 03 for Melbourne, 92909988, or you can just text the number on your screen. Now, whilst we wait for your call, let's get into our next email. Now, our next question is from Chris, who says, "Hi team, love your work. Would love to hear your views on ARB. Looks like it's setting up nicely with 60% to all-time high and not much resistance above, having just broken through and testing strong resistance at $34. Not in the trade, but looking at this for a short-term portfolio. Many thanks, Chris." So what do you reckon, Phil?
Yeah, look, he's spot on in terms of that resistance around $34. It's been a resistance level. If we go on the chart for the stock, probably one, if we hover around July, August 2022, we've got a second example in Feb 03 with third in August 03. So, and again, Chris is right, it's popped its head up, you know, this year and in January 04, and now having a slight little pullback. I'll zoom in so people's eyes don't get burned. But look, for me, although it's popped its head above the resistance, it hasn't really shown, especially on the monthly chart just yet, because it's had that little pullback, that it's clear through there. So if I see a push up now above that $36 level, then I would say, Chris, yes, we can have a good degree of what's the word? A good degree of certainty.
Get excited?
Yeah,
Pop
yeah.
the champagne
Well, that's
cork.
the pop the champagne. Yes, get excited.
Pop the champagne, wow.
Yeah. So any nice rise now above $36 will signify that that resistance has been broken quite comprehensively.
Cool.
Look, if I may, I'd just like to say, looking at the monthly chart, what's interesting to me, Chris, is how this stock, when it got sold off in COVID, look how high it actually went after that. I mean, a lot of stocks didn't even get through that high. This went up 428%. And while it may have actually done a lot of what it was going to do, and this is potentially why we're now seeing this sideways move for a little while, I think that it's got huge potential given that sort of trajectory that it's now experienced, because we know that when stocks make these sort of moves, often they can repeat them.
Yep.
And so it's now just about the setup that you're talking about, Phil, and then waiting for that move through. So I like it. In terms of his projections to the all-time high, I wouldn't be so certain about it not pulling back around this $40 mark. I'd be seeing some strength there potentially at $40, $41. I'd be, just watching that. For me, if I was trading this, I'd probably even take a short-term profit at that point. I'm not necessarily saying sell the lot.
Become a short-term trader?
Look, I've always liked to have my foot in both camps, more medium term, however. You're just having a go, aren't you? But I do like to, just take a bit of money off the table as it's unfolding.
That's good, very, very, very good advice. So, and I mean, there was lots more stuff we're going to cover tonight. In the second half, we've got more Bitcoin stuff as well too. So stay tuned for all of that. Now we do have a text. This is one on IFL from Sumit, who said it near the bottom thoughts. So I'm assuming he's asking us whether the stock that we've got is near its bottom. Have you got it up yet?
Coming right now.
Coming right now. Fantastic. Well, I'm sorry, it was a short message for you, Phil.
Yes.
So it took you a few seconds anyway, but you got it up on the screen now?
It's
Janine.
Insignia, is it? What was the code, sorry?
IFL.
IFL?
Yep. You got it now.
All right.
There we go.
Insignia. Oh, this is an interesting one, isn't it?
So he's asking it is whether it's now hit its bottom. So that's what he was asking.
Ooh. Look, it's definitely at the all-time lows, and it has potentially hit its bottom. You could be right about that. It's probably a little bit early to say. I'd like to see the stock do a little bit more, and by a little bit more, I'm thinking perhaps, at the very minimum, break the $2.50 mark, and even perhaps start breaking that $3 mark, because look, this stock's had a high of almost $11. So like we've mentioned, especially over the last couple of weeks, it's okay not to be the first person to the party. Let someone else show you that, that this stock wants to go higher. So
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I was gonna say something to that. It's not the question has to change. It's not has it hit its bottom. The question is it now going up? That's the question you should be asking.
And the answer is no at the moment, given that this bar on that monthly chart is strongly pointing down. So if I just expand this up so that everybody can see, there is no confirmation that it's going up yet, given the close on this low.
So the answer is no.
Yep.
That's what we're saying to him, because it's a real distinction. Because I know a lot of people go, "Oh, I want to buy this because I think it's hit its bottom," and the operative word there is, "I think it's done it." So what we teach people is say, no, you don't need to think about it. You just need to confirm it's going up.
Correct.
And then get into it. So right now, too early. That's what you're telling.
Yeah, I mean, he's right about the fact that it has hit the bottom. It's trading at the bottom, but I mean, we wanted to see it.
It could be just sitting there, just in just a consolidation phase before another dip.
Absolutely.
It could easily be doing that.
I mean, I do think it's good to watch this one, given that bottom that's there. I like the fact that it's made that low, but like Phil said, it just needs that extra move up to confirm it. And the trend line too would really come into play on this chart.
Well, thanks guys. Now we move on. Our next question, which is from Jack, who says, "Hi guys, I'm looking at Xero for the long term. I think it would be good to buy in if it gets above $130, but looking at the history of the chart, it seems to have some sharp drop-offs after it rises. Do you think it's a good buy above $130? And how would you recommend trading it regarding the sharp drop-offs? Cheers, Jack." What do you reckon? Xero, great
why
stock.
130?
Good choice, Jack.
Why 130? I can't see. the logic behind it.
I think, look, I'll stick up for Jack here.
Yeah, stick up for
I'll
Jack.
stick up for
The
Jack.
boys stick together. Jeez. We're going there, are we? Look, first of all, can I just say something? If we're going to talk about levels, let's talk about a level at this high. So, Jack, I think that you're really good in terms of picking that the stock needs to go through that high before we know whether it's going up. That's one. But just don't pick an arbitrary figure. Pick something that relates to the history. And if you're not sure, go onto your broker's website and look at the whole history of the stock. Don't just look at the sort of shorter term to see where these levels could be. But, I like your thinking anyway, and I agree once it gets through that, I'd say that high there in July, it's more likely to be going up.
Look, I'm going to say Jack is probably more clever than we think, and he's probably given the stock a bit more leeway. He doesn't want to buy just as soon as it breaks out above this 120, 124, what's the high here, 127, $128 level. He's gone, let's break the round number and give it a bit more to see if it really wants to push on up.
So you think he's cagey?
I'm backing you up, Jack.
He's a bit cagey.
I expect a bottle of wine next week.
Look, in the short term, I still want to see it get through 120. So if we look at the weekly chart, we just need to confirm that the shorter term direction is moving in the right way first. Through that 120, I think it's going to look a lot better. The risk is that it could actually take out this low in the short term. So that's all we need to be watching if it does pull back below 12th of January. And I think, sometimes we can look at stocks like this, which we actually love this stock and think it's amazing. However, it might actually surprise on the downside, and you've just got to be aware that that could happen.
Yeah, and I'm sort of with Phil, and maybe Jack's being a little bit more conservative, because the operative word in his email was long term. He's not looking for short term, he's not looking for 3 to 6 months, he's looking long term. And our view of long term is 3+ years, 3, 5, 7.
Yeah, so what you're saying is give it a little bit more leeway.
He's just giving a little bit more breathing space to make sure it's going up, which lowers his risk, and then he's in it long term. So I love what he's thinking about. So I agree with Phil.
Okay.
So, sorry, Janine.
Great, that's
I'm agreeing
fine.
with Phil. But we do have a text. Can you want to bring up NHC on Optima? This text is from Angelo, and he's looking medium to long term, and he's asking us our thoughts on the stock. So what have we got?
Nice one, Angelo.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice one. Look, if we go to the chart, this particular stock, I like the fact that it's had a nice real consolidation period over the last year or so, and look, that's been the theme for the market. And we commonly know once stocks consolidate, generally they do break out. And look, it's probably a bit early to say that this one is going to break out. I'd like to see it perhaps break the $6.40 mark before I was confident that we're going to get a breakout of this sideways range, because look, the risk here is that you're going to get stuck here and stay in here for as long as it wants to do this. So I would like to see a break above that 640, 650 mark, and then it would potentially be a buy, sure.
Look, I'm finding it interesting here now for the shorter term traders out there who'll be watching volume to see how that's going to come into play here. You can see that the volume's sort of just been dropping off, and we've seen it going lower. So therefore we've got this sideways move. So it's all fitting nicely. If we see the volume push up at the same time as the price rises, that would give a little bit more certainty. But I still think it's a little bit risky, even if we just wait for that move up. So it's a question of where is a safe point.
Well, look, now that you're on the short-term chart, I would also argue that what you can see here is that, Angela, is that there's a gap here. Now, the gaps sometimes go back and get filled on our market, but they also resemble that for price to gap down, that there's been an extra amount of, in this case, selling on the market. So you can see that the selling started around this week, and we had that huge weekly bar here which extended the selling. So we know that there are some strong sellers around here. So, this sideways consolidation could very easily continue to break on down and continue the short to medium term downtrend. So I would say it's a bit early for now.
A little bit early for Angela, but good question anyway.
Right.
Now,
Great
I know
question.
we've got a lot of emails tonight, and I know there's some emails in our bonus section that we've got, but we've also got some emails that came in really late that we're not going to do tonight. So if you have sent an email through and it doesn't get answered tonight, it will be answered next week. But let's get into our next question, which is from Peter, who says, hi, could I have your thoughts and reasons for Westpac, please? You guys are doing a great job. Cheers, Peter. Reasons for what?
Well, we did talk about banks on a recent show.
We did 2 weeks ago.
Yes, and we did like banks, so perhaps Peter could go and watch
And
that show.
Westpac wasn't one of them, was it?
Yes, actually, it was one that I liked.
Janine likes it, yeah.
And Westpac wasn't one of them, was it, Phil?
Tuesday. Not for you. Well, you used to like Westpac, but for some reason
Well, I
you
used to
went
work for them, so.
That's right. Look, from a long-term perspective, it'll be interesting, isn't it? Because NAB used to be the dog bank, and now is it Westpac that's going to turn into that? I don't think so. Short-term, I can see that there's some resistance across here, as we said before. But it just needs to test that level, and then I think it's more likely to head sort of $30, $32. That's what I see for Westpac over the next year or so.
Okay. Phil, I know you don't like it as much.
Look, I don't, because it has been a lagger in terms of the all four banks. But what's happening over the last 2 months? It's had 2 really nice, strong green months, and it's closing on its high. So a nice little trend that's starting to form here, and the fact that it's breaking out of this again consolidation period, it could be one that could potentially catch up to the rest.
So I guess reasons for picking one bank over another, I mean, that would really depend on whether you wanted income and growth, and what, Commonwealth Bank's extended right now, so it's had a nice run up. And which of the banks haven't had that run up while we're on the subject? Probably ANZ looks interesting as well as Westpac. I would say if you're choosing a bank, you've got to have the dividends, good dividend, plus the capital growth coming in as well. So for me, Westpac ticks those boxes.
Well, you can't argue with Janine, Phil, because she's in a red jacket and Westpac logo is red. So she's telegraphing that Westpac's her favourite bank stock at the moment, aren't you?
Where do you get these ideas?
I used to work for them. I used to have a big red W on my chest. That's what I used to have to wear on my thing, so don't you worry about it, we're there. But anyway, thanks Peter for sending in your email. So remember to hit that like button and show your support for our channel by clicking subscribe. It helps others find our channel, and so we can help them too. Now remember to show your support for us by commenting below this video after the show, because we'd love to hear your favourite part. Now remember, give us a big thumbs up. It does help new people discover these videos. That's it from us for our YouTube viewers. For Talking Wealth subscribers, stay tuned for the bonus content that we promised. Next week, we get into a hot topic, that is, should you use AI or robot trading strategies to buy stocks? So make sure you join us next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. If you love this show, then show your support for the team that puts in an effort each and every week to bring it to you. Give them a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. That way you'll know when we put up more content and go live. As always, thank you for joining us. For now, goodbye, good luck and good trading.